the Aliyah, like I feel like the only way to describe it is through the word. It's like you kind of feel unstoppable. It's like because you're so charged by such a huge mission that you're kind of like, yeah, we're doing this.
My first experience was birthright. I fell in love with Israel before I fell in love with Torah and Judaism, knew anything else. I just something special about this land, and got off a plane in Israel for the first time. I was like, this is home.
What is home? Yes, we have our homeland Israel, and yes, we have homes throughout the diaspora. But our current reality is complex. Israel's at war, and anti-Semitism is rising around the world. So what does that mean for us? What does that mean for this question of home? Join me, Izzy, as I speak with Israeli and diaspora Jewry to better understand this new complex reality and unpack where we put ourselves in this physical and spiritual war. This is the My Israel Narrative podcast. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of My Israel Narrative. Today we're very fortunate to be sitting here with two good friends, Raquel and Frank. And we're really just here, honestly, to have we said it's like an open schmooze and an open conversation of a lot of conversations we've been having together in the past few months, on the phone, here. We're both kind of in a similar situation, being in Israel for the past few years, and now kind of in an interesting place of figuring out what's the next move and where to go and the challenges that come with that, and with our kind of like identification or identity that's connected to Israel, and kind of how we're, I guess, parsing that out in a way. So this is really just like an open conversation, an open flow about that. But to kick it off,
Thank you for having us. We're so
Thank you.
Grateful to be back here in the land with you and watching the light of all of the beauty that's coming out of this really dark time. So thank you for creating a space for that to happen, really. It's a huge zchut for us.
Thank you, guys. So let's just start off, just introduce yourself briefly, where you're from, and yeah.
There we go.
I'll go first. My name is Raquel Horowitz. I'm originally from Miami, Florida, and I now live in Eretz Yisrael for the time being. My husband and I have been married for a little bit over a year, and I've been living here for 2 years. So I came before we met. I decided to come to Israel. It was COVID time. I was living at my parents' house after college, and I was like, I want to come back. I want to learn. So I ended up going to seminary. I went back to seminary just to learn a little bit, and thank God, 7 months later, I met my husband, Frank, and we got married here, we met here, and we built our life here. And a year and 2 months later, maybe a little bit more, we're sitting in Yerushalayim, very grateful for the times we had here. It's a huge zchut to be able to even say we did the things that we did. So I'm just grateful and sitting in that gratitude for today. Every minute is different, so there's some moments of all different emotions. But yeah, it's really a bracha to be back. We were away after the war began for 2 months, and we just got back this week, and it's really been the most, I was explaining to Frank yesterday, we were walking to the hotel, it's been the most recharging experience ever, walking through the streets of the old city. I was just so spiritually charged, and I'm so grateful to be back.
Yeah, I can't top that off, but I'm Frank Horowitz, originally from Los Angeles. Long story short, I grew up without any kind of Jewish background, and my first experience was birthright. I fell in love with Israel before I fell in love with Torah and Judaism, knew anything else. I just something special about this land, and got off a plane in Israel for the first time. I was like, this is home. I didn't know why. It was the first one in my family in 2 generations anyone to come to Israel. And just immediately fell in love with Israel. And after college, made my way back here, went to yeshiva, and made Aliyah, and been here since. And thought I would never leave, but who knows what's going to be the next step.
So you both kind of had your own independent journeys. When you met, was it very clear that you were going to try and build a life here and stick it through here? Was that the goal? Was that the intention?
I think, yeah. It's like moving to Israel, there's the Aliyah, I feel like the only way to describe it is through the word. It's like you kind of feel unstoppable. It's like, because you're so charged by such a huge mission that you're kind of like, yeah, we're doing this. Like this is what we're doing. So I think we definitely felt like we want to go for it. And then, reality sinks in different parts of the journey that kind of is like, oh, this is what it means and this is what it entails. And then you learn more about what it means to live here. But I definitely think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the intention, we were so headstrong.
Yeah. We had our differing views about how that was going to happen, in what way. I think we both have interesting missions now that we're here. We kind of met in the middle now. You came more from I think bringing reality into it from the beginning, and I kind of was here for 4 years without ever leaving. And then now we've kind of crossed, and now we're meeting in a good place where it's kind of what's going to be best for us as a family, what's best long term, and seeing what the reality is.
Yeah, I think Frankie brings up a good point. I was the realist in the beginning, he was the idealist. And then at some point we kind of hit and we're like, okay, and now this is what's really happening. Yeah.
I think as the idealist, you can't leave. Not that you can't leave. I think once you leave, Israel has the most amazing effect on you that when you leave here, it starts to wear down, I think, those core beliefs that you have when you're here. I think this place gives you a lot of clarity, and then when you leave, the clarity becomes a little bit less clear.
I think it's come a little easier in certain respects, and other things come a little harder. It's a give and take.
What do you mean?
Saying on a spiritual level, okay, or just how you feel. Even you said you came as a totally not connected Jew, and you just felt something.
Yeah.
I don't really get that feeling when I walk the streets of. I mean, some people do when they walk the streets of Manhattan. I don't in particular. I feel overwhelmed, and I just want to go into my house and not. Sometimes it's charging, but it's not the same kind of charge.
Unless you see a Jew. Another Jew.
Then it gets exciting, yeah. No, it's okay. Sometimes you can feel the energy of the city and it's exciting and whatever, but there is something here that just comes instinctively, and even beyond the spiritual feeling, just the fact that you walk around here and you feel this connectedness. We say it, and if you feel it sounds so cliche, whatever, but it's the truth. And I don't even have to, whatever. I don't have to know anyone, or honestly, it just happens to be that here, because it's a smaller place, so you just see people and it feels good and you connect, and that part is much harder outside of Israel. You have to work for it much more. So then it becomes the question. So if that's the part that's hard, so then clearly, there's, I guess, a certain job to be done here and a certain job to be done there in a way. And it's a question now, I guess, where you guys are sitting of I don't know if you want to share a little bit more about that. What are you feeling in this moment? You just came back, you're trying to figure out next steps a little bit. And what does that look like in your conversations of okay, if we were to stay here and trying to work through the realist part, or if we were trying to go there and kind of, I guess, catch a little bit of this idealism as a Jew outside of Israel, what does that look like in your?
You want me to go? I can go. I just think that we're at a very critical, interesting time in Jewish history and in our own personal development. So it's interesting. I mean, being here, seeing so many people my age or younger as men go into war, and then or being in yeshiva, or being a little bit older and being able to donate with more resources and time, having freedom, being just at the start, feeling we're just starting to try to build our life, think of how we can contribute to Jewish people. It was kind of conflicting. I was ready to go pick up a gun and just head down south, even though I don't know how much use that would have been. I'm a big body, but other than that, I don't know how to use a gun yet. And then I can't necessarily go back to yeshiva at the moment. I wasn't in a place to spend all my days volunteering, so it was just where do I going to add the most value, and what could we do to help build not just the now of the Jewish people, because if anything, history shows us that we're going to be here no matter what, and there's going to be a brighter day, but how do we not just live in the moment, but live in the future while also contributing to the now? So trying to manage all those things and realizing that we're in a critical place. Do we build for the future? Do we know it? We know that after this is going to come a great light, but is that going to be meaning that we need to be here? Do we ride that storm? Do we try to figure out how we're going to add the most value? Those are all questions that I think are percolating in our mind as we speak.
Yeah, that was beautiful. I think spot on. I think when you asked, what are you feeling being here? The first thing that came to my mind is, I can't leave. That's just in all emotion and all honesty, that's really what I've been feeling. I can't leave, but then what Frank is saying is the emotional, logical or the, you know, the more ideal, the more big picture story. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a path. Everyone has a derech. It's so easy to say, everyone should be here right now. It's something I did, something I told people, something that I preached. But Frank told me, and I don't know if I'm going to give it over properly, but when we look at how to give to the klal, sometimes it's giving to yourself, because if we're not taking care of ourselves, how can we give to Am Yisrael? And I think the pain and the galut we're all feeling, being in this situation, is bringing out so much individual seeking and searching, and that happens for so many people in such different places. And I think I've gained like a greater sensitivity for people and their stories and their journeys, and there's challenges living in Eretz Yisrael, and there's so many good things about it, and Hashem chooses who He wants here, and at the end of the day we're all meant to be here. It's just a matter of when. And I think something that we're reconciling is kind of when is our when, and when is that going to be, and when is it going to last. It's so easy for us to make the decision to kind of stay, but to what cost of how are we going to really stay? Ideally if we can stay, but how do we make a plan? How do we come here so that we can like mamash stay and build and give our future families exactly what the things that they need in a really healthy way. And I think on an individual level, everybody really needs to seek and search deep within themselves and really ask that question, because it's so painful. We hear it all the time. We want to be like volunteering, and I want to just like be doing everything, but we have our own worlds and our own battles internally and our own emotions that we have to deal with. So I think definitely, to answer your question, just a mix of emotions. I'm answering a lot more emotionally than Frank, which kind of it's interesting, and it's important to have two really like important ways of seeing the situation. But yeah,
you're saying everybody has to ask themselves that question. What's that question? Like, what do I need to be doing for me right now?
For me, so that I can give, so that I can come. Everyone has a different story. Some people are living in America. Some people are living outside of Israel. And maybe they do have the ability to come. Maybe that is in the cards for them. But if it's not, it's what can I do so that I can go? What do I need? It's what do I need to do for myself? What do I need to build? What do I need to work on? What do I need to figure out so that I can one day go? And that's the real avoda. If we all just picked up and got here with like, hi, well, like, help me. It's like, but we weren't created that way. We weren't created to just like throw ourselves into things. We're humans. We're emotional. We have needs. We have things like that. That's kind of how I feel. I don't know if it makes so much sense.
Yeah, it's a mix. You need both. It's also, you can find justification for both things. You can find, if you want, Torah sources and rabbis that tell you need to come here at all costs. And on the same hand, you can find rabbis and same Torah sources telling you exactly the opposite. So it's confusing. I think it's very internal and deep question that unfortunately, especially us and a lot of people, being newly religious and wanting to find the right path, it's hard to find what exactly is the right path for you individually, because there's also groups. I think it's dangerous when you get on either side of just like Aliyah at all costs. There's nothing else besides here. You got to be in the land. You got to be here. Even if you don't have a dollar to your name and you're just going to be walking the streets collecting money, or not doing anything and just being a burden on the community, you got to be here. And then there's other sources say you can never come here. There's no chance. It's not the right place. I don't think black and white as a Jew, we know that's not necessarily the right path. So it's a very gray, and just takes a lot of deep soul searching and back and forth to find out when, how, and what is the right response to how to be here.
Yeah, I think it's interesting the way you're painting the picture. It gets like very clear in my mind, like imagery wise, like. And I've said this to a lot of people in different contexts. Like, I feel like I was on either side of the spectrum at certain points. Like, there was definitely a time where I came to Israel also, and I was always connected and whatever, but I never, okay, I'm going to live here. What does that mean? Like, my family's all in America. That's not a thing. Then when I decided to make Aliyah, it was like, Aliyah or bust. Like, I didn't understand what anyone else was thinking, not trying to come here. And this 3 years ago in COVID times, whatever, I also felt, the world was shifting, things were changing, values were shifting, and I wasn't connected to what the life I was building in America at the time. And now that I'm like, okay, I heard the same call to come, the same feeling inside that I have to go back. And it's contesting with this place of like, oh wait, okay. So, and we believe that in Judaism, like you fall on, you go to one end of one extreme, so then you can kind of like swing back and find yourself in the middle. And I think like a little bit of what we're talking about here is like, okay, you have the black, the white, and now we're like finding our way in the gray to make it stick, to make it ferment and understand like, okay, maybe, we can even say we're doing this all with the idea of like coming back and moving back. But the truth is we don't really know if that's going to be feasible, if that's going to be the right thing for us, we don't know. Like, and you have sources that say different things also. You want to talk Torah, you want to talk history, like in history, the Jewish people didn't all necessarily all live here at the times when we had Israel. So we don't fully understand what the future holds. So I guess my question would be, with that in mind, making this choice now to be leaving, most likely, how are you holding on to like your Israel story? Like, where does that, is it just with this notion of like, okay, to come back and to move, are there other elements that come out for you? Like, how does your story kind of shift?
Yeah, I think we're writing it as we speak, but there's an image that comes to mind. We got married overlooking the walls of the old city, and we have a photo of us under the chuppah where we're blurred and you can just see the walls of the old city. And there was one day, I love that photo, I have it like everywhere, when Frank and I were discussing leaving, and I told him, look at this photo. This is what we're going to show our kids, this photo. This is what your parents did. This is what they believe in. This is where their values are. This is what they're rooted in. We did that, and that is our value. That's where we solidified our marriage. That's Bezrat Hashem. This is a place we want to come back and build our families. But I think that image for me just solidified for me that this is not going anywhere. This love for this land, this commitment to this land, it's the foundation of our marriage. It's the foundation of our life. And we're going to give that to our kids no matter what. There was an idea that I learned, someone always spoke about, they had to leave Israel as well, this couple, I don't even remember who it was, and she's in her vernacular and the way she spoke, she was always speaking as if she was going back. And I feel like that's something I would want to adopt for myself as well. Like I want to always be speaking as though we're going back. We don't know when, we don't know how, but we will. And those two things combined, and so many other things, Bezrat Hashem, bringing the Kedusha and bringing who we became in Eretz Yisrael to wherever we go. Hopefully we'll keep Israel in our hearts and make it part of our story. I can't imagine it's like who we are. That's why it's so painful to leave. It's kind of leaving part of yourself. That's what it feels like, leaving part of, that's who we are. We got married, we live in Israel, it's like, that's part of
your identity.
It's part of our identity as a couple. So we will definitely need to shift our image, but I don't think I think we will still be that, and I'm proud, and that's who I want to be. And life is so nuanced, so I'm happy to add to the nuance in the world and share that. And it'll be a journey, and I'm thankful for our support and just the bracha that will come, because at the end of the day, Hashem goes with you wherever you go.
Yeah, it's also just going on a mission. I think we said that if we're going to leave, that we have to go on a mission. And even while we were here, even though it was unbelievable, we're still in Galut even being here. So knowing that half of the Jewish people are outside, and coming from where I came from, knowing that so many Jews don't even know anything about Judaism, Israel in general, that I feel like there's, even being here, I felt a little bit the whole time like, can I do more maybe outside? That was always a question of mine. Even though I wanted to be here, I felt a little bit like it was not selfish, but like, oh, I'm going to enjoy this, I'm going to be here, but I have to sacrifice other Jews and maybe I could help. But if we do have to leave, then that would be a knowledge that we have a mission, and that hopefully we'll come back with loads and loads of more people inspired and wanting to come back here, and that we went down for the sake of coming back up, and a much higher place with more souls coming back with us that we hope to touch and bring Israel to them. Because if people can't come here, then we can at least bring that spark. I think that's one of the things about Israel that's the most beautiful thing, but also hard, is very individualistic, and it's hard to touch those outside. It's a discontact because it's so special here. But it's sometimes about you, and it's about your individual thing, and not being able to touch Jews outside as much. So there's a unique mission on both sides, and being outside the land also allows people to have an experience, and hopefully we can bring a little bit, like my wife said, of Yerushalayim to wherever we go.
Yeah, it's kind of from what both of you guys are saying, what I'm feeling. I was like, it's like, yes, it's a land that is a physical place. I think we hear this in different contexts, but it's like way beyond that. Like it's something that you can actually feel and take. Maybe it's hard, and you're saying like that could be part of your mission and what you want to bring back, but like it's something you can take to other places and bring, and we believe that as Jews are saying, right, we want to bring light to the world, and the light, the goodness, the truth in the world emanates from this place. But that means we don't want it to just stay confined to this place. So if you've been here and you've tasted it, so now it's time to take that bite and pass it on. And it could translate into then people themselves deciding to come here, good. But it could also be people then being able to tap into that same thing you tasted and spreading it where they are. Yeah. And it's like, I think that's also part of that. Like I'm feeling it for myself. Like, wow, I had this experience here, and I kept saying, like, it can't be for naught. Like I didn't just get this random idea to come move here, to meet nice people. Thank God it was an amazing byproduct of like making amazing friendships and really like a family here. We always like joke about it. We have this crazy like miracle story almost of how so many of us met and we're able to build lives here in a way. But I don't think it was just for that. So, and like you're helping even this, like you're helping me to understand, like, you know, there's a part of me that's like, oh, do I have to go there and then make sure people also want to come here and make Aliyah? Is that the thing? Maybe not. Maybe it's just bringing, what did I experience here? What did I understand here as a Jew that you can't necessarily understand there? And how do we?
Yeah, I think even like sitting here speaking about it doesn't feel easy to speak about Israel and us not being here. Like it doesn't feel easy, but I think Hashem created a world, and there's just no doubt in our mind that like Hashem is like willing for people to live outside of Israel, and that's something that like we have to accept, or I have to accept. I don't want to speak for anyone else, and that's really my voda. It's like there's really holy people that also live outside of Eretz Israel. They're really connected people. They're really good people. I don't know if that's okay to say. That they are really good people that live outside of this land, and Hashem created us on a mission, and whether that's it with Eretz Yisrael in our picture or not, it's like we have to accept that. I think something we're really going through is like, it's hard because you would think Hashem's will would be every Jew should live in Eretz Yisrael, but in essence, we feel that we're being asked not to at this point. That's just what we're going through personally, and that's a huge thing to accept and to trust and to have emunah and bitachon in. That's our MS for today. And B'ezras Hashem, we have we plan to come back, and it will be on our minds for sure. I don't foresee it not. I just wanted to add that point. Like it does, I'm sure for the both of us, feels so challenging to even speak about. It's just a really emotional place.
I'm sure you've been getting the questions already in the past 2 days. Oh, you're back?
Right. It's like, yeah, but for how long?
It's humbling experience. Being here and wanting to be here, then like going through the whole motion of trying to be here and thinking you're doing exactly what Hashem wants, and you tell people that you want to be here and you mean it, and then being able to accept it. Maybe I think it's a good experience to go through, to realize that maybe that's not my time right now, and instead of just pushing on at maybe the cost of yourself and your marriage and your friends, other people as well. It's possible to potentially let your ego get in the way of what is really in front of you. But it's hard to know. Also, on the other hand, it could be a fear we go through is it just time to keep pushing? That's the thing we don't know. Whether it's time to push more or it's time to take the signs that are in front of you and say, this is time to move, and we'll see what happens.
You said it exactly. I think when we were in Miami, I said to Frankie, I feel like Hashem is forcing me to live in a place I don't want to live. And he said to me, well, it sounds familiar. And I said, how? He says, Avram. And it's really the story of our ancestors. It's galut, and it's when we connect in a way to our ancestors and the way that they experience a similar plane. I'm not the only one in the world that feels like right now they have to live in a place that's not where they want to be. And that brought me definitely a lot of comfort.
It's true. While we're in this time where things are not the way that they're supposed to be, not here, not outside of Israel. So yeah, we're all just being shuffled around. And some willingly, some unwillingly. But that's why you just say, okay, I want to do the best to hear the call that's in me, whatever that is. Always translated, we were talking about earlier, as like listening to your gut is listening to your soul, which is listening to the piece of God that's in you. And if you can build up enough strength to trust that, so it's not going to steer us in the wrong direction. The challenge is that we don't understand why it's taking us wherever, especially when you're so firm in something, especially when you come with such a mission and such a, wow, this is it. That's how I felt. I was like, I conquered, like, that's it. I went and got my Israeli passport. Like, that smile I have in that picture was like, I felt like I accomplished like the biggest thing. I'm so happy I have it and I did it, even if it means this isn't the end.
No, but at least when you come back into the airport, you get to go in not the foreign passport.
It's awesome.
It's a really big bracha. 100%. I think.
Also, like just like in last week's parsha, it talks about Yaakov just wishing that it was the end, like he finally could have shalom, he can have peace. It's like Shem tells us, even if we think we accomplished what we came to do at a young age and we came to Israel, and it could be like, in a lot of at least my mind is like, oh, it's the final step, even though I did it all in very short time. It's like, okay, I come to Israel, make tshuva, get married, and I'm here to stay, and that's it. But sometimes it's like, no, it's just the beginning, and there's twists and turns, and it means you can come back here, and hopefully, like Yaakov also, with wagons back to the land, and here to stay, instead of just building from the beginning. You can be here in a more settled and firmly.
Yeah, I had a friend that told me, she's like, you can either take the short long way or the long short way. Who says that?
It's in the Gemara.
It's in the Gemara. Sorry.
This is just kind of a good ism.
Right, yeah. And I thought that was really beautiful. I think when you think about, two Baal Teshuvas moving to Eretz Yisrael and completely changing their lives over, and also being in a foreign country, which is not really foreign, but fortunately we don't speak the language so fluently. Not yet. That's one of the goals.
Learn Hebrew and
definitely
America?
We will be learning Hebrew. But it feels like it would be the short, long way. It would be this like short term, like we need to be here, but like how do we sustain that? How do we really stay here? And then the long, short way would be us taking our time to really prepare for this Aliyah, the real Aliyah for us. And that really resonated with me, because sometimes we have to take, a longer path that's actually going to last.
I keep asking this question to people, like, what is Israel? What is Israel? What is Israel? And as much as I wanted the answer to just be, like, and then people say home. So then I'm like, okay, so home. So home is the place you live, or the place you want to live. And it's been very trippy in my mind, like how to ferment that, because it still doesn't make sense, because you have sources, historically, political, whatever, all these different angles that are telling you that's not the answer. So then what is it? If home is, we're saying Israel's home, but home doesn't mean where you live, so what does that leave us with? And from this, one thing that I'm taking is like, home is, it could be an idea, it can be a value system, it could be a light, or whatever it is that you can take and bring to other places, and make that, expand that home. So.
It's true.
Yeah, that's definitely what I feel. Like, it's the values of this land, of these people, is what I'm going to take with me, what I want to instill in myself and in our.
Yeah. It also says in the end of the days that Israel will expand the whole world. Yerushalayim will be the size of Eretz Yisrael, and then Beis HaMikdash will sell Yerushalayim. So as we get close to that, maybe we can, like it says, it is, like you said, it's not a physical place, it's a spiritual entity. And maybe, hopefully, part of our job as we close up is to go bring that feeling elsewhere.
I love it. So just end off. You both finish the sentence. Whatever comes to your mind first, don't think about it. Just home is.
Israel.
Wherever we are.
Thanks for listening to another episode of My Israel Narrative. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow along and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Yisrael Chai.